This is the true story of the Westall UFO Encounter, one of Australia's most chilling and widely witnessed unexplained aerial events. It's April 6, 1966. A clear, bright Wednesday morning at Westall High School in suburban Melbourne, Australia. The clock ticks toward 11 a.m. It's recess, and hundreds of students spill out of their classrooms and onto the school grounds for a mid-morning break. The air is filled with the usual sounds of a schoolyard laughter, chatter, the thud of a kicked ball. The weather is perfect. A gentle breeze rustles the leaves in the nearby gum trees. It is, by all accounts, a completely normal, unremarkable day. But normalcy is a fragile thing. In a matter of minutes, this ordinary scene would be shattered by an event so bizarre, so inexplicable, that it would haunt the memories of those present for the rest of their lives. It all started when one student, then another, stopped what they were doing and pointed toward the sky. High above the school, something was descending. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a helicopter. It was a silver, disc-shaped object, gleaming in the morning sun. Witnesses, both students and teachers, would later describe it with remarkable consistency. They said it was metallic, like polished steel, and shaped like a classic saucer, a flattened dome on top. Most unsettling of all, it was completely silent. There was no roar of a jet engine, no rhythmic whir of rotor blades. It moved with a grace that defied physics, starting, dipping, and then hovering motionless, as if suspended by an invisible thread. The object appeared to be descending rapidly, heading toward a patch of pine trees and scrubland just beyond the school grounds, an area known locally as the Grange. The sight was so stunning, so utterly out of place, that for a moment, the schoolyard was frozen in a collective state of disbelief. Then, the spell broke. Driven by a mixture of curiosity and adrenaline, a wave of students broke away from the main group. They sprinted across the oval, their eyes fixed on the spot where the craft had disappeared behind the trees. Several teachers, initially trying to maintain order, soon found themselves swept up in the chase, equally compelled to see what had just landed so close to their school. As they reached the edge of the Grange, pushing through the brush, they saw it. There, in a small clearing, was the object. It was on the ground. Witnesses described it as perfectly circular, smooth, and without any visible seams, rivets, or markings. Its metallic surface reflected the sky above. Some claimed a second, identical craft was hovering silently overhead as if standing guard. There were no wings, no tail, no visible means of propulsion. It was an object of impossible design, resting quietly in a field behind an Australian high school. The air around it felt strange, electric. The scene was surreal, a moment torn from the pages of science fiction, now playing out in broad daylight. The quiet stillness didn't last. Abruptly, without any warning, the landed object lifted off the ground. Witnesses described its departure as incredibly swift. It didn't bank or turn like a conventional aircraft. It shot straight up, vertically, into the sky at an astonishing speed. Some students who had gotten close claimed they felt a wave of heat wash over them as it ascended. Others mentioned a strange pressure change in the air, a physical sensation that accompanied the craft's silent, rapid departure. In a matter of seconds, it was just a silver speck against the blue, and then it was gone. The second craft, which had been hovering, allegedly followed suit, vanishing just as quickly. The students and teachers were left standing in the clearing, breathless and stunned, staring at the empty sky where the impossible had just been. The silence that returned was heavier than before, thick with confusion and awe. In the aftermath of the object's departure, the witnesses began to notice something on the ground. In the exact spot where the craft had rested, there was a large, circular impression in the grass. The grass wasn't burned or scorched, but flattened, pressed down into the soil in a distinct ring shape. Some accounts claim the circle was over 30 feet in diameter. Rumors began to fly among the students. Some said the soil inside the ring felt different, almost baked, and that the grass never grew back properly. This physical trace became a focal point, tangible proof that what they had seen was real. It wasn't just a trick of the light or a shared hallucination. Something had physically been there. Something had landed, leaving its mark on the earth before vanishing as mysteriously as it had appeared. The flattened ring in the Grange became the epicenter of the Westall mystery. The strange events of the day were far from over. Within hours, the official response began, and it was swift and baffling. Witnesses reported seeing military trucks and vehicles arriving near the school and heading toward the Grange. Men in uniforms, believed to be from the Royal Australian Air Force or another government branch, were seen cordoning off the area and conducting an investigation. Back at the school, the atmosphere had shifted from excitement to tension. The headmaster called a special assembly. According to many former students, he sternly instructed them that they had not seen anything unusual. They were told it was likely a weather balloon or some experimental military aircraft. They were ordered not to speak to the media and to forget the entire incident. The message was clear: what you saw, you did not see. This sudden, authoritarian clampdown on information only deepened the mystery and fueled a sense of unease. Why would the authorities be so desperate to silence a group of school children? Despite the presence of over 200 witnesses, the Westall UFO Encounter received surprisingly little media coverage, especially at a national level. A few local papers ran the story, but it quickly faded from the news cycle. There was no formal government report released to the public that offered a conclusive explanation for the event. The official narrative was one of plausible deniability. Years later, when pressed, the Royal Australian Air Force would state that their records showed no known aircraft operations in the Melbourne area that matched the description of the objects seen at Westall. The official explanation was, effectively, that there was nothing to explain. For the hundreds of people who saw the silver saucer descend from the sky, this official silence was deafening. It felt less like an explanation and more like a cover-up, a deliberate effort to erase a shared, extraordinary experience from the public record. But you can't erase a memory. Decades passed. The students of Westall High grew up, became adults, and started their own families. Yet the memory of April 6, 1966, remained etched in their minds. In interviews conducted years and even decades later, their testimonies remained remarkably consistent. They recounted the details of the silver craft, the silent descent, the landing mark, and the swift, intimidating response from the authorities. Many spoke of the lasting impact the event had on them. They described the fear and confusion of that day, the shock of seeing their teachers and other authority figures react with such urgency and secrecy. Some claimed they were personally warned, even threatened, to keep quiet. For a significant number of witnesses, the Westall encounter wasn't just a strange sighting. It was a life-altering event that permanently changed their perception of reality and their trust in authority. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged to explain what happened. The conventional explanation holds that the witnesses saw a high-altitude weather balloon, a wayward target drone, or an experimental aircraft like the rumored Flying Pie-Tin program. Skeptics point to the possibility of mass misidentification, where one person saw something mundane and the story was amplified by group hysteria and playground rumor. Then there is the UFO hypothesis, that the object was exactly what it appeared to be: an extraterrestrial craft that made a brief, unplanned stop in a Melbourne suburb. The problem is that no single theory neatly fits all the facts. A weather balloon doesn't move with intelligent, darting precision, nor does it land and take off vertically at incredible speed. Mass hysteria doesn't explain the physical trace left in the ground. And without the craft itself, the extraterrestrial hypothesis remains forever in the realm of speculation. Today, no definitive physical evidence survives, only the powerful echoing testimony of those who were there. So, what are we left with? A story of over 200 witnesses, including students and teachers, who all saw something extraordinary in broad daylight. An event that allegedly left a physical mark on the landscape, and an official silence that has only fueled decades of suspicion and speculation. Was it a secret military test? A case of mass delusion? Or was it something else entirely? Something from far beyond our world that chose a quiet Australian suburb for a brief, mysterious visit? We may never know for sure. The files remain closed, the evidence has vanished, and the witnesses are left with only their memories. But on that clear autumn day, in Melbourne, in 1966, hundreds of people looked up at the same sky and saw something they were never supposed to see. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as chilling as we did, be sure to like this video